Hey, Lotus Globe here, and it is June 23rd, 2020, and I wanted to start off this video just by talking about, I wanted to actually flesh out a little bit on what I was talking about in an earlier video when when I had brought up the subject of pansexualism. So, um, just so you know, this is pertinent to the astrology forecast that I'm going to be uh, discussing at length here. I just wanted to make that clear, just so you know, this isn't like any sort of this is not some LGBTQ rally type of video as much as I support, the LGBTQ movement, and do have a fascination with all different sorts of genders. And that's what I wanted to get out of the way here, is to address the point that, we have the sociological model of pansexualism, which it basically is, um, you know, it transcends, the discrimination of all genders as being, as favoring one gender over the other, and seeing one as being deserving of greater love and appreciation than the other. However, and while that is legit and fair to say, there's also an energetic architecture, I feel, to pansexualism. Pansexualism is also the um, the orientation. It is where a person's sexuality is the very core of creative fire that supports the very structure of an individual's life. So everything that they do, and I mean, just referring back again, Sexuality and the Religious Imagination by Bradley Toposky. It is on page 79, if you're so interested. And I even have it highlighted here. If anybody can see what they're reading here, that Freud had supported this as well. The fact that pansexualism, is essentially a psychosomatic construction in which the motion of the energy throughout a human organism supports their motivations for everything that they do in life, everything that comes down to their hobbies, their career, their education, their relationships with others. So when someone that identifies as pansexual is in crisis mode, in other words, it feels very, very blocked, there is definitely an overall ennui, just a blankness, and a chronic fatigue that occurs, and it's horrifying, because there's nothing worse in life than lacking any sort of raison d'art for finding passion and enjoyment in life, unless it's doing this, basically, and that's why it's like, it's really, really sad that, sexuality, sexual expression is still very much something that has been, you know, walled off, into the otherwise profane world of sex workers or escorts or prostitutes, um, pornography, and different types of clubs, BDSM societies where people go, and have, different play spaces, that where they can, have at least a certain autonomous space and a certain fraction of time that they can set aside in which they can, be able to step outside their shame or depression or anxiety, whatever it is that walls them off from being able to express those urges in a very healthy way with a woman, you know. And yes, I am speaking from the man side of things. I think there's enough about, I think there's enough from what the Me Too movement has covered about, the sorts of blockages that women have experienced in their lives, So I support that. So I'm just talking now from the man's perspective of what it's like to experience that sort of blockage, in his own nature. Now, from an astrological perspective, this is where I've started to pay attention now to this progression in the zodiac signs. So we've had our Venus retrograde, and now just recently we've had our new moon again in Cancer on the 21st. And that's unique. I mean, that's very, very that's a very important puzzle piece when it's combined with the Venus retrograde, because Venus has been in Gemini this entire time while it's been in retrograde. And so just looking at the way in which those one sign follows into the other sign, and then looking at the corresponding planetary sphere through which that sign is expressing itself is, quite fascinating to me. So that's why the subject of this video is going to be on a very important and essential part of courtship, which is something that is actually discussed in great detail in Tantra. It's called Transfiguration. So, Transfiguration is, as I definitely see it, very much what I've noticed with this Venus retrograde right now, because Transfiguration, to basically break it down to the bottom line here, is in Tantra, it is a form of practice. By the way, I actually got it from this book right here by Somananda Moses. And so when he talks about transfiguration, transfiguration is basically it's what I see as like a metaphorical architecture for which we construct the mental landscape for which, our ability to communicate what we see around us is, breaking it down, into, different variations of metaphors. And when it comes to describing, a woman that you experience great attraction to, um, this, um, this calls to mind what it, what it takes as far as, creating a a mode of communication that, touches the other person's heart, and also, causes, the breath of life to just, light up the mind, So this is Gemini here again that we're talking about, and the Venus retrograde that we experienced recently. This is, this retrograde has been, in particular with me, calling, to re-explore my talent for writing, which is something, that I've had since I was a kid. I took creative writing classes, was really, really fascinated with, the ability of words to paint pictures, and the patchwork between the two, since I felt that there was like no separation between word and image, and that in fact, the word really comes out of the meaning that the heart feels drawn to, by association with that image. And so that's essentially what it's saying here about transfiguration. It's saying that, it's considered to be both method and objective in Tantra, he says here, changing our view of reality, and not only changing the external view, but also creating a very poetic inner view of reality. It may have paranormal or even magical effects. This Tantra practice can be done with a partner or applied to an environment. It can be brought to every aspect of life. And I would actually go a step further by saying that that's, essentially what, is the basis of Tantra right there. I think, the practice of transfiguration can be, and ideally be, practiced, in the art of flirting, as, obviously the woman that, that you feel so drawn to and want to experience of merging of reality with is where one would feel the strongest, the strongest pull, mentally speaking, and that's definitely, the most pertinent thing, the most pertinent goal to accomplish with transfiguration. However, she is really, the ultimate goal, the ultimate reward that every man wants to pursue, which is also why transfiguration also has to start from the bottom up. It's like transfiguration, of course, is something that should apply to, everything that you do, that you experience, such a connection with, that you can describe it in words that, are, that blossom and flower, with these incredible metaphors of color and form and shape. I tend to feel that transfiguration is very, very pertinent for the artist. So, like, this can also apply to dancing, which I also do. I've been doing dance since 2016 with ballet, contemporary, and hip hop combined together. and a little bit of African dance. I had mentioned writing before, and I'm getting back into electronic music production. So of course, these are things that um, are require you know just like nurturing whatever reviewing has to be done during this retrograde period with Venus, which leads now into this recent new moon in Cancer, the next sign in the zodiac. And it's no coincidence that, there's a pattern falling into place here, because now we've moved from, the mutable air quality of Gemini, which is found in the lungs, the cardiovascular system, and, the entire mental faculties that are, kept stable through the central nervous system, to the emotions, which is ruled by the breasts and the stomach, as is the case with the sign of Cancer. So, with the moon in Cancer now, this is now the season, since we've now moved out of spring into summer, where this would be literally where I myself and others inspired by this video will want to explore their personal summer of love celebration. Because, I mean, that's essentially what this new moon in Cancer is all about. Cancer, is all about romance, and I think it's fair to say now that we are exploring a whole other side of romantic love that moves away, that evolves more from the social aspects of love found with Venus to the more emotional and nurturing aspects of love with the moon. And this is perfect right now, because this is a perfect time with this new moon, because the moon rules over Cancer. That's its basic house where it resides. That's its normal, its normal place of residence, is the moon. And I think while it is in its exaltation in Taurus, which is actually a Venus ruled sign, the moon in Cancer is like the next step towards, experiencing that intimacy. you know. If you looked at when we had the full moon in Taurus, a couple of months back in late May, we looked at, we would look at, how the moon, okay, so like, look at, think about what the moon symbolizes in the tarot. Now, so when the moon was in Taurus, so here I'm just getting out my Aleister Crowley Thoth deck, which to me is the best deck out there, to provide the most vivid descriptions of each of the tarot cards. Plus, it's got a lot of sacred geometry in it. So, yeah, when we had the moon in Taurus, okay, well, you know what, no, it wouldn't be in this deck of cards here, but I can of course show what moon in Cancer looks like. So it's the card luxury, you know. So see right there. So you have the 4 cups right there, and you have like the pink lotus flower. So that's a natural progression from the two the you know what I'm gonna have to make this a separate video because obviously I gotta sort out my tarot cards better here, but so we here we go. Yeah, so with our well, this is perfect. So yeah, this is obviously an indication that my Mercury lens is really, really cleared up. Just when I stop overthinking things, it's just like the right object, especially a tarot card falls into my lap. So if you look at the 2 of cards right here, the 2 of cups, this is the symbol for love, so it starts out with these 2 fishes, and these 2 fishes have emerged from the mud, so the colors of green and yellow here are supposed to symbolize, just the very ground foundation for which, these fishes emerge from out of the soil, metaphorically speaking. This is where, like any sort of old emotional karma, has now been washed away by, the by the presence of the universe, opening up, the portal within the waters of life, to bring forth that desired lover that brings the intimacy and closeness that you need. Now, that's where, Moon in Cancer, symbolized by the 4 of cups, now symbolizes the next step here, because now the fishes that have joined together in union, to bring about their abundance, their combined abundance together, can now experience, a heightened sense of, fruitfulness upon the earth, and that's why I think also the color of the lotus flower has changed here too and has gotten a deeper pink. So if you think about the moon in Cancer in this regard, it helps now to see how the words that we look for to relate and to communicate with another person, in whatever manner, feels comfortable, even if it's, kinky, or even if it's horny sounding, the whole point, is that with the new moon in Cancer, we now find a way to beautify those words and give them a certain rhythm which the other person can relate to. And that's the work that has to be done here, is to find that, that transfiguration social architecture, by which, flirting doesn't just become this impulsive blast of sparks and then the energy is dispersed and it's gone. No, what we're looking for here is an alchemical change in which, the otherwise impulsive, the impulsive and mutable and directionless energy, air quality of Gemini is now given a more consistent, more circular rhythm, with, the sign of Cancer, especially since, it rules over, the digestion, the way that, we digest, not just our food, but just our, just, you know, the very, very things that we store within our emotions, that have tenderness and compassion and a motherly intimacy to them, so, and it's not surprising that the shirt that I'm wearing, features a tidal wave, circular vortex here, so that's kind of the kind of an emblem for Cancer right there, if you want to look at it that way. So, but see, so the gist of this whole astrological forecast here is to take away the lesson that, when you are looking for sexual intimacy in a partner, it doesn't merely have to support, some prescribed societal construct on what's considered good social etiquette. Good social etiquette has to be very individually defined by the way in which you feel towards another person, and that really, really comes down to honesty and authenticity. And I think when we consider the element of water here, authenticity is everything. You have to be honest, even if you are afraid that it's going to be, it's going to, cause anxiety or fear, or if you think it's going to make the other person uncomfortable. When you attune to that other person and you already sense, like, if the other person's smiling at you, or if the other person, starts having conversation, starts complimenting you on something that you're doing, or if you're like holding an instrument in your hand or something like that, then that attunement is made right away. So then it's just about feeling into that to get closer and closer, so that you can create that intimacy, that, caressing and embracing of, two waves of the ocean, coming together, which I believe is what those two fishes in the Two of Cups symbolize right there too. So, and yeah, so anyways, hopefully, this is just as much about, what's going on in my life right now, as much as what I'd like to believe is going on in other people's lives right now that are watching this video too. So, yeah, overall, I hope so far you're having a great summer and doing a lot of creative activities outdoors, and just obviously pay attention to, all the details that go on, during Cancer season right now, because it's obviously going to be a very, important time of fertility. And for sure, definitely think about, the Four of Cups, obviously also think, just also think about, the actual moon card itself, or the card that's symbolized by Cancer. I don't have it on me right now, but it's the Chariot actually. Yeah. So I think I should definitely make another video about um, my understanding of the tarot cards related to Cancer. But yeah, that's going to be a future video sometime, sometime soon. Yeah, so um, yeah, again, this is Lotus Globe, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.